I'm Clint Emerson, and welcome to Can You Survive This Podcast, where the interview is just as dangerous as the scenarios I put my guests through. From hostage situations to natural disasters, carjackings, active shooters, and more, if you're looking for the skills necessary to survive these situations, then this is the show for you. Hey, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Can You Survive This Podcast, where the interviews are dangerous, but the scenario we put our guests through is even more dangerous. Today, we have a badass rock star, Zoltan Bathory, on the show. He's a musician, a martial artist, a philanthropist. He's the founder and rhythm guitarist of legendary and my favorite band, Five Finger Death Punch. Zoltan, thank you for coming on the show, man. It's good to see you again.
Absolutely. Good to see you too. It's been a while.
It has been a while, at least a couple of years. I think the last time I saw you was in Vegas, and you were living in the suburbs. It looks like now you're living in the city.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you move, or do you maintain both places?
You know, I have a new house that I'm renovating, and in the meantime, I'm living in the high rise.
Nice, man. Looks good. And you're looking good. I appreciate you coming on the show, and we're going to dive right in. We start with the rapid fire.
All right.
Are you ready?
See,
Here we go.
I suck at these ones because I always okay, I need more information. Give me all the whole scenario.
All right. Well,
just hit it.
You'll be able to what we'll do is we'll go through it, and then at the end I'll come circle back around, and you kind of give me the answer, your why. You give the why. All right. All right, here we go. On stage or on the mat?
Ooh. Well, on stage, I guess.
On stage, all right. At home or on the road?
On the road.
Oh, yeah. Booty or boobies?
Well, that's a boat, but then I'm going to go with booties.
I'm going to go with booties. I've seen your garage, but so I got to ask, Ferrari or Lambo?
Ferrari.
Yeah. Downtown or the suburbs?
Downtown.
Recording or touring?
Ooh, it's a boat, but let's go touring.
Touring, yeah. Judo or Jiu Jitsu?
Well, I can't. It's a boat. I can't. Boat crowd will give me crap if I say any. But Jiu Jitsu, actually, I'm doing Jiu Jitsu mainly.
Yeah. Okay. Gracie or Tonka?
Well, that's gonna go Gracie. I mean,
if you don't want to get your ass kicked,
you're putting me in danger already.
Yeah.
Tonka can't understand if I said something else. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no, I know, and that leads to the next one: ask for permission or ask for forgiveness.
Forgiveness for sure.
Yeah. And then the last one. I think you get this one all the time. Fame or fortune?
Fortune.
Yeah, that's what I'd pick too. All right, going back to the top. I gave you the choice on stage or on mat. Just for background, folks, he is a rock star. He's on the stage, but he's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu and competes, and so that refers to on the mat. You picked on the stage. I'm sure I don't know. Is that an easy one for you, just picking the stage?
Well, yes, because that's my priority. It's the idea of I would be a career fighter at this point is, it's in the past, right? So obviously this is what I do. I'm a musician full time, and I don't like to use the word hobby because I take martial arts extremely seriously, and in fact, it's kind of a cornerstone of my life. I would not be in a position in life. I wouldn't be successful if I wasn't a martial artist, in my opinion. I started martial arts before I started music. So, so that was always something that I saw through the world through these sort of the goggles of a martial artist, and that sort of established a personality. And I think that kind of got me here. But, music is what I do mainly. And I feel like, the difference between martial arts and music, that one of them is, on the end of the day, martial arts becomes a very, it's tied to this physical world we exist in. because we're using our bodies to do martial arts, right? Even though, the whole idea is that it's extremely cerebral. It's very, very much, especially jiu-jitsu, very mental, but it's still executed with your body. With music, even though I'm executing as a musician, I feel like, everything is a vibration. Everything is, this whole universe is vibration and harmonies and how they relate to each other, right? And so being a musician is almost like you're manipulating the source code, of that, of existence, so that's just more serious in some way for me.
Yeah, I like that, man. And I like, it's like chess of the mind, both jiu-jitsu and music. It's not something that it's not easy, and it's not something everybody can do. So you're pulling off both at a very successful level, and that's awesome. And for those of you who don't know, like Zoltan, donated a more than a day of his time to contribute 10 skills to Combat Edition, which was awesome. And you can really find out, how badass he is just in those 10 skills. At home or on the road? You picked on the road.
Yes. I like the emotion, for you, same thing. First rule of combat, right? Keep moving. Yeah. But I like traveling. It's to me, the whole idea is that I'm a nomad. I'm a Hun. I'm literally Hungarian. It's like we are nomads, and I guess it's almost like genetically embedded in us that you keep moving, and and you find resources as you go. And for me, the motion, I like the fact that I'm exploring. I'm the explorer type. I'm the guy who, if you put me back in the 15th century, 16th century, I would get on a boat and let's go. And we're not sure where he's going and not sure that we ever arrive, but I will go. I'm a perfect astronaut candidate. I'll get on the ship. Let's go. So to me, that's always, that's why I picked that. Even though, at moments it's good to have a place that you find your serenity. This is your, spot. But for me, being on the road, being in motion, being in this explorer mode and seeing new things, and it's more interesting, I think that's the purpose we're here anyway, to see more, to explore more.
Yeah, see, learn, always learning. I look at it kind of the same. I look at home as that's where you reset for the next
just
trip.
Recharge, right? Yeah, that's your recharge. Yeah. You plug in and then let's go again.
That's right. And next question, of course, I always gotta throw in my twist: booty versus boobies. Of course, I threw that at you because you do post a lot of Grace's booty from time to time.
Yeah, she's not really that happy about it. I always joke with her about it. Yeah, I mean it's kind of like, not to get scientific about it, but if I like women with muscular bodies, that somebody that can throw down, somebody's like I always seen my own life that way, that if I have a pair, it would be somebody that if the end of the world is coming, this is a woman I want next to me. She's going to fight to the death with me, Yeah. And so that's kind of what I'm, what I'm looking at. And I guess that the reason I gravitated booties and legs, and, it's about that structure of a person,
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm attracted to, a woman that is strong and, And most of even my exes usually were, pretty dangerous characters, you want to mess with them. And I just like that whole thing that, I don't have to feel like she's depending on me, or her safety is completely depending on me. I like that feeling that she's her own person, and she can defend herself. She can fight. She's a muscular, strong, serious endurance. I mean, in fact, I don't like to go to the gym with her because it's, Jesus Christ, she's an animal,
Yeah.
And you know, and there's something about that. Like if it's not like it happens to us, but imagine somebody in a bar, not that we go to a bar, but somebody like step to us, right? And I would have to be like, look, dude, I'm not gonna fight you. If you go through her, then maybe, you know, but you know, it's unlikely that you will, you know. So I like that, you know.
Yeah, she'll kick your ass. And for those of you who don't know, she's like jiu-jitsu royalty. So
Right.
yeah, beware, right? Ferrari versus Lambo. Of course, I knew you'd pick Ferrari because, you know, you do post your annual
Right.
cannonball run you guys do across the country or across Nevada.
I mean, I had both, you know. It's like both of those cars are very special, obviously. You know, between the two, you know, the Ferrari I have has a turbo, so it behaves very differently from let's say from the Lambo that was, you know, unnatural, you know. Different animals, but I would say the Ferrari is a little bit more precise, you know.
Yeah.
It's you can tell the difference. One of them is brute. The Lambo is a brute, you know. It's just power, and it's just a brute car. And then a Ferrari would be more nuanced, you know. And you notice it actually. If anything, if any complaints I would have about a Ferrari is the, you know, like mine came with this carbon fiber, I mean this carbon brake set, right? And it squeals like a dying pig all the time, and there's nothing you can do about it because the carbon, you know.
Oh yeah.
And the brake performance is like, I'm never sure what I'm gonna get because it changes by how hot your brakes are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually reverse, but when the brakes are hot, it grabs more. And so sometimes you just kind of want to slow down, and it almost puts you through the windshield. It's like, holy shit, it just grabs that, you know. So, but you know, but the Ferrari, otherwise, it's, you know, other than braking system, I preferred on a Lambo. Other than that, the Ferrari is more precise, and how the power curve and how, you know, how it moves, it's more precise, and you know, and right now I'm in a Ferrari club, so you know, but it's not impossible that at one point maybe I go back to, you know, I'm looking at this new Lambo that just came out with, I think, a couple of days ago.
Oh yeah.
I'll check it out, you know, but you know, but right now it's like a 488.
Yeah, that Pista. The Pistas are nice. I feel like Ferrari just has mastered every aspect of
the racing, you know,
of their cars,
the technology
right?
is coming literally from racing versus you know, versus from the lab. It's actually track, you know. Now, you know, Lamborghini also have the Trofios, and they race, you know, but Ferrari has like a massive history. You know, at that point, you know, there's nothing to sneeze at. Lambo and Ferrari, right. You know what I mean? It's pretty close.
They're sexy cars. Either one of them. They're both sexy. And yeah, that new Lambo's got like 1,001 horsepower and 3 electric motors and V12, and that thing's beautiful too. Downtown or the suburbs? When I met you, you were in the suburbs. Now you're downtown. Right. So yeah, you kind of like it, huh?
Yeah, it's even that, you know, I lived downtown. I lived in a skyscraper before I got that house, you know.
Yeah.
And I literally got that house because of the dog, you know. My girl has a big ass pit bull, so you know. So I didn't wanna have it in the apartment, so I got a house because of the dog. So it's Tonka is the reason I got a house. I like the whole idea of concierge service, you know, and because my lifestyle, I leave on tour for, you know, months at the time. And, you know, you don't have to worry about your house, your lawn, your pool, or, you know, all the stuff, because you just lock your door and you're gone. Right. Yeah. And the places I lived always had concierge service. So it's sort of like a hotel living. You roll up, they park your car. I call downstairs and say, okay, I need my car at this time, and clean it up. And you know what I mean? So the car shows up clean, ready to go. They would even fuel it if you wanted to. So I mean, I kind of like, I'm really utilitarian, you know. To me, these are things that's a noise of life that I have to deal with, right? So anything that is not creative or I'm not excited about, that's just a noise, right? But you have to go to grocery shopping, right? I'm not really interested in that, but I have to do it, right? So high-rise living is minimizing that noise for me.
Yeah, I like the way you look at it, man. It allows you to concentrate on the things that you appreciate, love, and passionate for. Let everything else get done some other way, right? I mean, if I could, I would too. Hell. Okay, recording or touring, and of course, being on the road and being on the stage.
Yeah, because it connects to that, that nomadic lifestyle of just going. But, I do love recording though, because that's the creation, we can't tour if we didn't create first. So these two is really connected to each other. I couldn't be touring without recording music that I tour on. So both of them has its time. I love both, actually. It's really fun recording. I love it. But when it comes to the road, then again, I got to play the music. I got to meet a lot of people, and that constant stimulation that I'm on the road and we are on the move. I like that.
Yeah. I could, I think I kind of compare it to deployments where, that's our second family, right? And they almost kind of become your primary family because you're on the road so much. So it's a tough choice. Like, basically being home training or deploying. But deployment is where you get to test your skills, and that's where you get to put them to work. And of course, that's what you're getting paid to do. So you tend to choose deployment over training, which is kind of equivalent to, recording versus touring.
There's another aspect of it, if you think about it, because you lived it. So you're going to know, and everybody listens, and it was either in a band or in a group scenario, a football team or, military band, right? There's a pack mentality, when the pack is on the move, there is something so powerful about it, and so that's actually what you kind of end up missing. You come home from deployment, or you come home from the road, or or the football season ends and now you're sitting home. That downtime, what you start missing first is really the pack, like we're a crew and we all depend on each other, obviously in a touring scenario, my life is not necessarily depending on another guy, like for you it would be, right? But still it's pretty tight. My guitar tech and my sound guy and all these guys are there to make this show happen. So it's not just the 5 guys on stage, there's another 100 that make it possible that there's a show. So and we're really close with our crew. This is our crew. And so when the camp is moving, it's like it's a militant traveling circus, in some way. That's the, and that vibe of like we all in this together. That's the mentality, and that's the thing probably you would miss too, because your battle buddies and are especially for you guys. You really, when your life is depending on another guy. Right. That bond, I don't think people can understand that really, civilians, like what that means when, it's a connection.
No, to this day, I mean, I've been retired now for a little while and I miss it every day, hanging with the guys. I mean, that's the best part. Judo versus Jiu Jitsu. And I knew that was kind of a, crappy question to ask you. Well, because both of them are very important to you.
Right, those two connect. At one point, Judo and Jiu Jitsu was one thing, and it just happened so that it's separated by the history of of the two. At one point, Jiu Jitsu was even illegal to teach in Japan, but it was separated. Jigoro Kano basically created the easy way, which became Judo. So a lot of brutal techniques were taken out from Judo. Basically, they were more jiu-jitsu techniques, right? And the reason for that, so you can train it without the least amount of injuries, and that's why it's called the easy way, right? And then eventually it became an Olympic sport, and more it started to concentrate on throws, right? So that the Newaza, which is a ground fighting part of Judo, start to kind of disappear because it's more spectacular. People are competing. 2 guys in a ground fighting scenario, a lot of things can happen of where somebody who's not privy to the martial arts or this particular martial arts wouldn't really understand that a lot going on. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
And so when you take Judo, it became an Olympic sport. Number one, it was important for the Olympic Committee, obviously, that it's very different from wrestling. Right. So there is a marketing aspect to that, because if wrestling and judo would be very close to each other, then why there are both, right? So judo started concentrating more on the throws because it looks good. It's more, it's more visual, and it's way more different from all the other martial arts, and especially from the Olympic martial arts. I think that's why jiu-jitsu is not becoming an Olympic sport, because it's too close to judo, and judo is already in there, So that's why judo sort of became more of the throws, and jiu-jitsu just happened so that it became extremely sophisticated on the ground. So now the two start to sort of, create this fork and separate from each other. But to me, somebody who does both is a very dangerous grappler, because
no doubt about it.
No
doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, like, judo, the beauty of it is if you do a throw correctly, you don't need to go to the ground. Like, the ground becomes your fighting partner, right? You put somebody on the ground hard enough, the fight's over.
Right. And I experienced this because I compete, and most of, especially where I compete, I compete black belt, heavyweight, super heavyweight. These guys are, serious competitors. And we all kind of know each other. There are, libraries of your fights. So I can look up anybody and see what they have been doing in the past. For you to become a black belt is probably at least 10 years,
Yeah.
So that means if you're competing, there's going to be some history, maybe even from your black belt, competitions, but maybe even before that. So there is always a library that you can look up, somebody, what they have been doing in the past. And so people research each other, and so they know that I came from judo. They know that I'm a judo black belt. So I experience it all the time that not many people want to stand with me. So they will figure out a way that pull guard as quick as possible, go to the ground as quick as possible, so they don't get thrown. Because if you get thrown, it's I am going to execute throws that already put me in an advantageous position.
Mm-hmm.
So now, my old judo guys are always throwing crap to me, like, what happened to your judo? I was the guy who would toe bump a little bit. I would make sure that a throw is nice and it's all the way scraping the ceiling. And then once, but when you in a different environment, obviously the rules will dictate the behavior. So in judo, if I throw you really nicely, it's over. It's basically a KO. It's a nippon. You're done, right?
Yeah.
In jiu-jitsu, that's where it starts. I threw you, then I got 2 points for that, but now we're on the ground fighting. So I have to arrive, into a advantageous position, hopefully side control. And so I have to take out some throws. I'm not using some throws that would land me somewhere else. And I also don't bump it. The more inertia the body has and I'm slamming somebody, it's a possibility that I also over-rotate. Judo, it wouldn't be a problem because it's a KO. I won anyway. In jiu-jitsu, if I over-rotate, now the other guy is on top.
Right.
And now he's in a better position. See? So I had to kind of modify my judo to jiu-jitsu. But the two together, I think, is yeah.
That's lethal. Yeah, it's a lethal combination. And I remember when we were going through some of your skills, it stood out when you said it's, if I do it right, it's Zoltan Airlines because they're going to go flying.
For sure.
All right. I gave you a tough one. It wasn't tough. It should be an easy choice. It's the girlfriend or the dog, Gracie or Tonka. Of course, you got to pick the right one.
There's one of them speaks English, so
yeah, that's a good answer.
But obviously, I love the dog. It's her baby. She delivered that dog, and I kind of we are friends now, but originally we were not. The dog was extremely jealous of me.
Oh wow!
To the point where and it's it's 100-pound pit bull, so he's no joke. And now he's an old man. He's 14 years old now, so he's limping around and he's old. So we keep him in a stroller, pushing him everywhere because he can have a hard time walking. His arthritis now. But when he was, but when we got together, the dog would sneak up on her when she was on the phone with me, and kind of pretended that he wanted to cuddle with her, and then grab the phone and run with the phone. Because he heard my voice and he would just bolt with the phone and every time, and he would sit around in the house. If she left the room, Like you could immediately hear Ennio Morricone, one of those, Western movies, one of those spaghetti Westerns or whatever, the music, ding, 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 and we were looking at each other like, who's going to go first, right? It's like, and it maybe sounds funny, but I was literally, for a while, I was walking around with my pajama at home and my gun on me. Because
just in case.
I mean, like, he's a 100-pound pit bull and he doesn't like it. Right?
Oh boy.
Because he like, I'm the guy that's coming in between him and mommy, and so he was not happy. It took him about a year and a half, 2 years to sort of like, okay, you're cool, and now he comes to me when mommy doesn't let him do something or he wants cookies, and it's like he comes and starts, hey bro. Like he's head bumping me, but so now now we are friends. I love the dog, but that's of course it's not a choice. I mean, if I had to pick, then the girl stays.
You make a decision, you get the inheritance with it. Fame versus fortune. You pick fortune,
right? Yeah, because it's imagine that if you had fame, right? Yeah, and you were broke. It means like now everybody knows you and everybody knows that you're broke. That's not really a good proposition. Well, like, here's the thing. It's we have to play by these rules. At least we are alive on this planet, right? So regardless what my opinion may be about money and the monetary system and how the whole thing works, and I have my opinion about it, but we all playing the same game, right? We're only playing the game of Monopoly. So at this point, it's you can't disassociate from a monetary system where the people who have the guns, right, can be bought with that money. That means you lose, because ultimately, if you have money and I have a gun, I win, right?
Yeah.
But if I bought into the system, then if you have the money and you pay me to do something and I have a gun, then you win, right? So basically, we live life in this monopoly, paper money sort of world, and you can't step out of it, because the guns, the force, the power is bought by the same currency. It's accepted, right? This only would go away if there's a total chaos. Then it would change, but before that, no. And so so basically money at this point translates to labor, right? That means labor can be bought, right? So if labor can be bought, then fame will get you nowhere, really, unless if you look at fame, you would have to somehow capitalize on fame and turn it into fortune. So when you have a choice, fame or fortune, right? The fortune is already fortune. Fame on its own not going to do much for you unless you somehow manage to turn it into fortune, because we live in this, this paper money monopoly system. So that, to me, this is a no-brainer that I will pick fortune.
Yeah, no, and it's a really intelligent answer. And a lot of people that. The way I see it is, if you would have picked fame, that just has nothing but ego written all over it. You just want people stroking it.
Again, if let's say you say you're the most famous person in the world, what you have to do now? You have to write books or engagements, or you have to do something that will turn that fame into fortune.
Yeah.
Right. So then, then basically I'm going to take out the one step. Let's just go to just get to a fortune then,
Yeah,
and
no, you've done it.
It's energy. Like, look, it's really what that is. The best translation. It's energy, because it can buy labor. It can buy labor. It can buy machinery. It can buy safety. It can buy the man with the gun. So you know what I mean. So basically, that means that it can be directly transformed into food, safety,
everything,
shelter,
life support,
everything, right?
Yeah. And this is a great segue. You came to the United States. I remember you telling me, you had basically your guitar over your shoulder and a couple of bucks in your in your wallet to New York, and you didn't speak a word of English at the time, right?
True story.
And now now look at you. So kind of walk us through. Show up to America.
Right.
What'd you do? How'd you get by?
Yeah, so I grew up in a communist country that was still communist at the time, and that and martial arts, my mindset of being a martial artist and on one hand, and the other being sort of a natural rebel, not accepting my fate, so to speak, created this I guess the perfect environment for me that I can become who I became. And one of them, well, martial arts is, I started judo when I was about 9. Really quickly, it rewires you. It rewires your mind. It rewires how you think, and especially if you love martial arts, if you love that scenario. I love that combat, that vibe. I don't get the adrenaline dump. That's why same thing for me. Go out on stage or go out on a mat. I'm calm as hell. I laugh. People always make a point of it, like, dude, you're laughing all the way while you're fighting. I'm like, because it's fun,
Yeah.
I like a good fight. So it's kind of like, and then same in stage. I don't care that if there's 100,000 people. The song will go the same way. The execution of what I have to do is the same if there's a witness or there isn't. So that's kind of how I look at it. In fact, there's more people than there's a reciprocation of energy. So it's even better for me. And but back to the martial arts for a second, that sort of your mind start to understand that and it comes from the combat part of martial arts, that okay, I'm gonna have to fight this guy, and there's no running away, there's nobody that can help you. So you start to develop these blocks of personalities of this is gonna happen right now. I can't brush it under the carpet, right? So you start not being a procrastinator, because you have to deal with whatever has to be dealt with right there on that moment. Nobody can help you. You have to be self-reliant. And every position, you have to look at it like, well, I have to win some way. So now I have to be, critical thinking and even though if you know the techniques, you still have to be creative, how you're using them, how you're chaining them. So you have to, and so your mind and your body working in tandem, how to figure out the scenario. It's not even an option for me to tap out unless I'm really caught. But then that also teaches you something. Like there is a moment of humility, like you lost, live, have another day to fight, Mm-hmm. So that also creates that situation where you kind of leave the ego at the door. So that built that personality. Then later in life, when I looked at my circumstances, I'm living in a communist country, and I'm not going to accept this position. The same way how in martial arts, I'm not going to accept an unfavorable position, because that's where your trouble starts. Something that looks like a little thing, like, yeah, it's not exactly a good position for me, but, let's just, that's right there. Now you're chasing. Now you're behind a curve. Now you accepted something that's, and then you translate that into life. You translate that into relationships or whatever you do. You accept a relationship that's just okay, and then you're going to stuck in that relationship, or you're going to accept a job that's just okay, but it's not what you really wanted to do. And then it will just kill your dreams. Right.
Yeah.
So all those elements, those elements are all present in martial arts in the way of thinking while you are fighting. Right? Don't accept the position, and every single battle that you have is winnable some way, and your job is to figure out what way you can win this. Right? If you're caught in a bad position, what you're gonna do? You're gonna figure out how to fight your way out of it, right? And then take that into real life. Shit happens, right? What you're gonna do? Throw your hands in the air, or you're gonna go, okay, I'm gonna figure this out. And then when you start to get good at it, even when a situation is bad or seemingly bad, now you're already looking at the angle like, okay, well, it looks bad, but how do I turn this around that it's still not just I fight my way out, but actually I'm going to use this seemingly bad position to reverse it and make it into my advantage. That's when you start to be masterful with martial arts, man. You look at, every single situation that way. Now, if bringing it over to real life, and all of a sudden you have, you got a personality that is equipped to deal with everything, right? And I kind of developed that very early in my life, because I started when I was 9 years old. So all the way through my, I finished my college in Hungary, and the communism was crumbling in that time. But my teenage years, I was that rebel, and my parents were deathly scared because, it's in America for now. It's an alien concept, but if you guys not watching it, it's not going to be an alien concept. We couldn't just say whatever we wanted to say, So when I was saying like, we're going to grow up and burn this shit to the ground, my parents were deathly afraid that they're going to get picked up and go to jail or disappear. That was a possibility. You didn't have a constitution. We didn't have a freedom of speech. I remember being a kid and watching a demonstration, a strike in America, and communist system all day long, communist propaganda, right? They were really happy about it, and they were telling us with really pride, like, look, America is crumbling. The proletariat, the workers waking up, and then they're gonna take down the bourgeois and take down the system, and look, communism is winning, right? And I'm sitting watching this on a little black and white TV on that one channel that exists in my country at the time, right? And I look at my dad, and I'm like, hey, I'm like 7 years old. Right? I'm like, so in America, you can go in the streets with signs and scream and yell that you're not happy with the system, and nobody shoots you. And my dad was like, just looked at me for a second, like, I'm pretty sure that was not the intention of the propaganda, but I read between the lines, I'm like, okay, I need to get the hell out of here. I need to go over there. So pretty much since I was 7 years old, I'm getting the fuck out of it. That was my life goal. And so it was, to me, martial arts and study. I know people don't like to go to school. Man, I went to school, and after school, I elected to go to another school and another school. So my day was from 7 a.m. to midnight booked every day, because I understood that I have to be faster, smarter, stronger than everyone around me to get out of here. And it's not just that. It's not just the idea that I don't have to outrun the bear. I have to outrun you. And there's a little bit of that. But I understood that that's the only way. I'm competing against the West that has the resources and everything is available, and we are just sort of getting by, and we are like that little hungry kid looking into the restaurant when the rich people are eating. And so we were completely aware of American culture and what's happening in the world and American history, and we were highly educated, but we were not part of it. And that was the crazy stuff. So I always thought that I'm going to go to America and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a rock musician. This is going to be my life. And people would laugh at me. It's just not possible. We don't have passports. You can't go to another country, unless we go with a tank. That's the only way to get out of my country. If people attack another one. So there's a minefield on the border, and the trigger happy border patrol that's really bored and will absolutely shoot you if you're trying to, escape. Because communism was so good that they wanted to, make sure that you stay in there, in the good, Of
course.
Right? So, so that was my upbringing. And in a second I finished my college there. And in the second and communism was also collapsing at the same time. We were that age of being that, both the reason and the witnesses of it. And then I came to America with a guitar, couple of $100, a bag of clothes, and didn't speak English. And that was my start. Like, all right, now. And, so that's why I always gonna be, these days it's a little bit difficult because I feel like patriotism is being massively misunderstood what that is. And you can't stop and explain to everyone when somebody takes a symbol and change the meaning of a symbol or a word, because that's the game we play these days, right? Let's change the meaning of words. So now patriotism and the American flag is purposely manipulated to mean something else than what it really means. I'm an outsider. I can tell you what it means and what it meant when we were in a communist country. This was one of these aspects of, unfortunately, of this flag is gone. You knew this, right? Number one, we didn't hate America. That's bullshit. It doesn't matter what the press or whatever they were trying to create. In fact, we were aware, and I think this is the case today, even with countries that are adversary to us, that they love American culture, they'll watch American, movies and listen to American music and admire the foundation of what this country is supposed to be. But maybe the leadership is, have a different opinion. But the people themselves, right? I can guarantee that the Iranian people don't hate Americans. That's just not how it works. We have a lot of friends from Iran, and they're telling us that. So it's the same thing. I was growing up, and we were aware of American culture and the history. We were really well educated about. So when I came to America, I know your history probably better than most people here, right? And so the American flag always meant that wherever that flag is, if it's on a boat, if it's on a building, don't fuck with it. Because Americans will come and will defend that flag. They will, if you burn that flag, they will defend the idea of the flag. They will take revenge, and they will keep coming until they win. That's what you're dealing with, right?
True story.
So if you want to, same thing, like if you were a kidnapper, right? If you decided, like, I'm going to be the T word now, right? I'm going to be a terrorist and I'm going to kidnap somebody. You don't want to kidnap Americans, then guys like you will show up and you will keep coming and you will keep coming until you win. And even if and what's going to happen, even if we eliminated, let's say, the hostages, this 100% I'm signing my death sentence, and everyone I know and everybody in the 2 miles radius will be dead, because that's what's going to happen. So there was that, and that was respected. This is slipping away now. There was respect. If you're an American citizen, America will absolutely defend you and will go through hell to get you out of wherever you are. There was that, and there was this understanding that you do have a freedom of speech. There is a constitution that protects you. Like, that was impossible for me to disagree with my government and even sue the government or argue with my government in a totalitarian communist government. You just disappear, and that's not a joke. Like, you just disappear. That's not. And if your neighbor asks questions, he will disappear too. So, and so that was reality. And that's a crazy loophole of the the First Amendment. Freedom of speech allows you to even attack freedom of speech itself. And you would say, like, who's dumb enough to do that? And it's like, well, somebody's like, hold my beer. So that's where we are, right? But I came to this country because of that. I came to this country, and I always gonna be, and when I started this little thing with, like, it's difficult now when I say I'm always gonna be a patriot. I'm always gonna be somebody who's gonna say I came here because of that constitution and because of what this country was founded on, up until this country, and even beyond. But think about it. If we extend or human history, we used to say 5,000-6,000 years civilization. We would start somewhere with the Sumerians, but it's probably like 8,000-10,000 years of history, at least what we are aware of, scientifically. I'm pretty sure there were other civilizations before, but there is no hard evidence. But I think so. But let's say this particular continuation of this particular run of the evolution, let's say 8,000 years, 10,000 years maybe, right? And literally this, what is it, 275 years right now? I think so, 275, right?
Very new.
So
very new.
So this country is 275 years old, or at least the constitution, right? So this is, if you think about it, that's nothing in this 10,000 years. And in these 10,000 years, so the majority of this time was dictators, kings, sultans, and and monarchs, basically, in charge. There was no freedom, and there was an absolute power. So this was this country is a pause in that flow of time, right? And it's really dangerous and kind of insane to mess with this, because look, the Roman Empire stood like for 1,000 years, right? And there were the Ottoman Empire, I think 600-700, so there were these massive empires that were seemingly indestructible, and they lived for 3-4 times longer than the United States is existing, and then they just collapsed and disappeared. Right? And so if this slips, the very reason I came here, to this country to live here, right? If this slips, then it's done. It's over. If this disappears, then that's it. It was just a momentary freedom for a little bit. In the 8,000 years, 10,000 is whatever history, there was a couple of 100 years we were free, and then boom, we are back into dictatorship, right? And then, when you look at history, it's also not fact. The winners write the books. We actually don't know our history because the winners wrote the book. So is it possible that if we screw this up 100 years from now, 200 years from now, I mean, like, this is happening right now. Books are being taken out of education. Books are being, sort of destroyed and even banned, right? So would that be possible that this 275 years will be erased from the history books? Yeah, most likely, right? I remember a time where we had a revolution in 1956 in Hungary, where the Hungarians rose up and they tried to overthrow the government, the communist government. They tried to push the Russians out of the country. And of course they lost and it was beaten down. And I don't want to dive into the geopolitical reasons and the secret deals that were made and why that happened. But, it was a difficult time. And like later on, when I was in school, I remember in history class, one of my classmates said that, the 1956 revolution, and they threw him out of school because you had to say anti-revolution.
Oh,
because they said, communism is the revolution. And so if you say that there was a revolution against revolution, that's not correct. So they literally threw him out of school because, oh my God, so words were, that important. Concepts were that important. And so is it possible that they would delete history? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is a crucial time, and it's very important, I think, that people pay attention.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What's happening.
You definitely have an awesome and interesting perspective, and I love hearing it from you because, you came to America for certain reasons. And a great point you made that I think all Americans should kind of remember is, one, we pledge our allegiance to a flag, not a person. Right. Especially these 70-plus-year-old idiots that somehow end up the president of the United States. But, we pledge our allegiance to a flag, not to people or an organization. So I love the fact that you kind of brought that up, and the fact that you were driven, to America for those same reasons, freedom, right. freedom, which you're right. There's people infringing on it right here in our own country. And it's unfortunate that, we keep sliding in that way, because before you know it, there won't be any freedoms at all. Right. But when you came, with that limited cash flow and a dream, how did you bring the dream to life? I remember you telling me specifically that I asked you, I think, 5 Finger Death Punch. How'd you come up with a band name? And I think you said you were sitting and you guys, it was like martial arts, and I basically wrote it on a napkin and boom, it became but how'd you bring all that to life?
So that's exactly happened. I arrived to America. I didn't speak English. I had few $100 and a guitar and a bag of clothes. So that was my initial, starting point. And, landed in New York. Look, the Statue of Liberty actually meant something to me. That was an emotional moment for me, like, oh shit, there it is, So, and the flag that you just mentioned, that we pledge our allegiance to the flag, but really it's more like it's an idea what that flag actually represents. So I guess I would say I pledge my allegiance to that idea, what it originally represented. Unfortunately, I'm not happy with the perversion of what people force it to mean, or, but the original idea of stepping away from dictatorship that, that permeated our history for thousands and thousands of years. And here's, let's have a chance here, right? So I'm here and I'm happy as I can be. And the place I was staying, somebody left a book, Shawshank Redemption. That was a book by Stephen King. And I had a Hungarian English dictionary. and I was reading Shawshank Redemption word by word now and translating it. I had no concept of grammar at this point yet. So imagine that was a difficult
Oh my
read.
God. That sounds like torture.
Oh yeah. And then, but I have to win. So I kept reading it. And it started to sort of put together the picture. Right. And I was also watching, there was a little black and white TV in my room. But it had closed caption. So I would run the closed caption so I can see the words and I can hear them pronounced. So that way I could understand the pronunciations of certain words. So that's kind of how I taught myself to speak English. And yeah, it was really difficult at first but also a talent kind of came out of it because I got to the point where I could communicate with people. And later in life, I realized that I acquired a hidden talent with this. Because there was a moment where I was watching TV and I just didn't understand a word. And it literally scared me for a second, like, what's going on? I'm watching the TV and I can't understand a single word this person is saying, right? Yeah. And I thought I spoke English pretty okay by now. And so what happened, I was watching some news and the news anchors reading. They don't actually think about what they're reading. So you lose that body language connection to the words, but what you're saying.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And so I couldn't understand it. And I realized, like, I'm really just understanding every third or fourth word, but I'm watching you and then filling it up. So I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm either, somewhat empathetically or telepathically or every way I can approach a person. I try to understand where you are in life and what you're trying to tell me, right? So I have to be on empathy in some way. I have to be a mind reader and a body language reader in the same time, because I had to fill in the words. If I get on a phone, I had to make these notes what I'm going to talk about. If you get off the subject, I was dead. That's it, because I can't speak without seeing the body language. So the phone was very difficult for me. But the talent came when somebody's lying to me or somebody's telling me something they don't quite understand. I know. And it is without a shadow of doubt, I know, because your body language does not match with what you're saying.
Wow.
And because I had to learn English that way, right? I became unknowingly, this is not something I planned on. Later in life, I realized that I can read your body language just as good I'm reading what you're saying. And when the two doesn't match, then I know. I know. So yeah, that's how I learned to speak English, and then inserted myself in society, and then the race started. The rat race. I had pretty good skills. I have design skills. I have a degree. I have a degree in microelectronic engineering, and I had an art and design degree, which from typography to graphic design to everything under. We either were learning psychology, mass psychology through design. There were classes like that. The easy way to explain it is, the simplest way is like if I draw an arrow on the wall, right? You're gonna look in the direction or move into the direction of the arrow, right? That's the simplest way that I can control a person with design, right? And of course there's a subtext to that, like is it genetically inherited or is it learned through society? What those signs mean? Like a stop sign is definitely learned. You don't know that genetically. However, because it's red, that genetically, because nature will tell you what not to touch by the color red, right? So usually poisonous animals have red on them, right? So the science of that, a combination of that, of how to, when you make it extremely sophisticated, that how do I make you do something through design? So I was studying that, right? So I had a pretty good skill set, and that's how, I was playing guitar, trying to, form bands and working as a designer, making money as a designer.
Wow. And now, once you got Five Finger Death Punch up and running.
Mhm.
When did you know that you made it? Like, okay, or was it just this long progressive? Okay, what you wake, years and years later, or was there a moment?
So obviously, I've been in many, many, many bands back in my own country as well, and already touring there with bands, and then I came to America. It's same thing here. I started several different bands, and there's a time when you can look at something as, because I think a lot of people bleed away on this, that they form a band and then comes the dilemma, like, is success is around the corner and I just have to go one more mile, or am I driving to the wrong direction and I'm wasting my time and the clock is ticking? So that's the eternal dilemma in any business, I guess, like, is there success on that, And so I started a bunch of different bands. I'm not a joiner. I joined one band at one point as jumped in because they were going on tour. UPO, it was an American band. They were going on tour. I jumped in as a bass guitarist. I'm not a bass guitarist. I can play bass guitar, and then toured with them for a year, but because I wanted to tour, but I'm a driver. I don't sit shotgun. So I started my bands, and I had to always realize when it's time to abandon this. This is not really going somewhere, not going anywhere, or not going, the places I wanted to. And there come a moment. So with the row of these bands, at one point, somewhere in 2004, the kind of music that I really like started to come back into, back into, I guess, that's the spotlight. There was a new, the American new metal revolution, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Not new metal. This was post, Korn, Limp Bizkit. Right after them, there were these bands like Killswitch Engage and similar bands that are very, have a European metal sort of vibe to them, melodic guitar solos and all those things were coming back. And I'm like, yes, finally, right? And so I was working on Five Finger Death Punch and recruiting the band members. And I guess the difference was that from the get-go, I thought, I'm going to do things differently this time. And one of the different thing was that I recorded the first album that we have, The Way of the Fist. I pretty much recorded that album on my own, at least wrote it on my own, and until I got our first drummer, Jeremy Spencer. And then the two of us kind of went through the structures and figured out the drums, because I was writing on drum machines and loops, drum loops, and I wrote that record. And so that way I had an idea versus a very concrete thing, like, this is the music, this is what I'm doing, versus, get a band together and then you start to figure out where you're going to go. This was very conscious, very purposeful. Like, this is the music I want. I don't care if it's almost like I was at that point too. Like, I don't care if it succeeds or not. I need to make a record that I want to make. And this is that record, right? And then approaching the recruitment of the band members, that was from the get-go. I'm like, okay, in efficient structures, democracy is not necessarily the way to go. Like in the military, you can't do that. Like, okay, guys, let's vote who's going to dig the foxhole. That doesn't work that way.
Right.
Or
right.
we need some volunteers to go and charge that hill. That doesn't work that way. There's a structure for a reason. Efficient structures are hierarchical. It's just what it is. On a boat, not everybody can be a captain. There is a captain. There's a first mate. There are, so I was kind of looking at that. Same with business. You have a CEO, and the doorman doesn't have the vote of like where the company is going. That's So I kind of changed from this traditional, let's start a band and let's just I switched from that, and I was like, okay, this is the music. This is what I want to do. I will not change this. This is the direction. If you join this band, you're joining my ship. You're joining this band because you want to go into the same direction. If this is not what you want to do, don't join this band, because I will not argue about this down the line, right? So I kind of had to change from this utopistic, well, let's just be a band and we're gonna jam thing. Like, no. Here's the music. This is the direction. Here's the plan. This is how we're gonna do it. This is how we're gonna execute it. So it was a little bit different from that perspective, right?
Yeah.
As for who was in the band, like, for example, Ivan. when I saw him perform the first time, and I was like, this is the guy,
Yeah.
And he was in another band at the time. And then later on, that band sort of fell apart, and I was literally stalking him because I knew, like, this is the guy that can do what I need, And so him and his relationship, our relationship, was always the kind of like this weird yin and yang. We are, personality-wise, we're as different as two people can be, like as different as we could be. And we joke about it. We always like, you're Spock, I'm Kirk, because he's that emotional impulse guy. Everything,
yeah.
and it's like it's very I don't want to use the word imbalance, but what would be a better word? Like impulsive,
Yeah.
Like he will say something before you think about what he just said, or he will jump into the fire, think about it, like, man, that's you just jump into the fire, like, hey, yeah, you should have taken the parachute, man. Or you jumped out of the airplane too, like that's him.
Yeah.
And I'm Spock. I calculate everything. My early life, I was originally going to be a mathematician. I was bred to be a scientist. Back in, communist countries, they separated kids into different, schools. So that was my thing. And to me, sort of math and, geometry and that was I was studying and science. Anyway, so that I still have the scientific mind. And so I'm calculating everything. I make the plan. I play the chess game. That's my thing. And the two of us together actually it works. We're the yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
So, but when it comes to where we're going, musically, what we're doing, then him and I are locked. Like, this is what we're doing. Yeah, it's like we just intuitively know. We don't even have to talk about it. Like, boom, this is, So it's otherwise we are completely different. And so every single member was joining this band with that idea, like, hey, this is the direction. If you're not 100% satisfied with this, then don't join, because we're gonna have problems down the road. And so if I look at members who are no longer in a band, I mean, like, that's kind of what happens if our direction is no longer aligned, then you can't be here. Then we have to part instead of struggling, and So that's how it started. And then the name came. You're right. That's a true story. It came from remember Kill Bill? They had that 5-point exploding lotus, whatever the hell that was.
Oh yeah.
And there was another kung fu movie of 5 Fingers of Death. I was back in the days we were watching these really bad, Chinese, Hong Kong, basically more like Hong Kong kung fu cinema on VHS tapes. I was a big fan of that. But,
don't date yourself, buddy. Don't date yourself.
Right. No, I mean, it's okay. I'm alive for about 120 years, so I look pretty good for that. So, it's came from there. So when I saw that, I'm like, man, that sounds so stupid. It should be a band name. But, the Lotus part and all that. So we basically made it 5 Finger Death Punch. And there's this legend of it's called the Dim Mak in Chinese. It's the one touch punch, basically one a touch of death. That's how it translates.
Yeah.
It's like this.
Bruce Lee had the 1-inch punch. Yeah.
Yes. So, but this is the Mak is more of a death touch. That's really what it means, direct translation. But it could also mean like like the nerve system, or you hit somebody with one punch and it's over, right? So that's kind of how we got it. And obviously there are 5 of us. 5 Finger Death Punch. That's how it came together. And at the time, it sounded pretty good.
It's working. It's working for you.
It was funny because we had a bunch of other possibilities, and when I was recruiting Ivan, tried to get him to fly to Los Angeles and and rehearse with us. He lived in Denver at the time. I told him the name, like, what do you think of this? I was thinking of this band name, 5 Finger Death Punch. He's like, oh my God, that sounds so stupid. Yes, that's it. That's the name. Don't change it. It's like everybody gonna hate it or love it. And he was right. Basically, it's again, the intuition was right, and that's how we named this 5 Finger Death Punch. Wouldn't change it. It's a perfect rhythmical thing too. We scream on stage like 5 Finger, and I cried Death Punch. It's perfect, for that too. But the whole idea is that. We always joke that good names are already taken. And when you're looking for a .com, it's really hard to get one. So that's always the joke. But it's a name that when I say this, you will stop. Like what?
Mhm.
And really, that's the purpose. If you look at, marketing, right? Whatever it is you're marketing, and it's of course we are artists and it's a band, but you do have to market it. There's music business. There's a business side, and if you market a band, it has to be something you remember, the name, right?
Yeah.
Because if you come up with some, whatever, doorway or the grand hallway, who the hell gonna remember that? If you have something weird or something sticking out, then people tend to remember that, or at least it stops them in their track. Like you said, what, man? Like what's the name of the band? It's always fun on the airplane. Somebody sits next to me on a some old lady, and I was like, oh, you look like a musician. I'm like, yeah, no, I lie. No, I'm a tattoo artist. We're going to a tattoo convention. So I don't have to get into a conversation. But, sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, what's the name of the band? And then I always have to preface it. Like, okay, just stay with me. This is kind of from a Kung Fu movies, Five Finger Death Punch. It's always the same face. Like, what? Like, what? But yeah, awesome, it worked out. It worked out for us. So it's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody I know knows the name. It doesn't have to be explained. Obviously, it's global. Your tours definitely show that, right? I mean, you're all over the world. You're about to. I mean, I was just hitting you up the other day. I'm going to be when you come into Dallas in August. I plan on coming and bringing my daughter. Because as you know, my daughter's a big fan. We'll be waiting for you here. I got to say, though, you are a wealth of knowledge and experience. But now we got to put you through a little scenario and see if you survive this podcast.
All right.
You ready? All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. For this scenario, you will find yourself dirt biking through trails in the forest. Okay. You are by yourself and you're ripping it up in nature. Before you head out for the day, do you A, check the weather forecast before setting out on your ride, or B, pack a bunch of snacks and get some extra fuel for the day?
I mean, it's a dirt bike. If you were flying, it would be better. If it was boating, it would be better. In this case, I do know somebody who actually died because went out with a dirt bike and didn't take extra fuel, didn't take any communication devices or enough food and water, and didn't make it. So I'm going to go with the fuel and the snacks because anything can happen. I have to make my way back to civilization from the forest. So I'm going to go with that. Weather, it's a dirt bike. It can take the rain.
Okay. So you, but for the matter of the game, you decide to check the weather because we want to set you up for failure, Zoltan. You're not rolling with this very well. All right. So you decide to check the weather forecast before setting out. The forecast says that there will be some mild weather. So you pack accordingly because, well, now you know the other things you probably need to pack for the weather along with the food and the fuel. So do you A, hurry up and continue the run, or sorry, as you shred through the trails, you suddenly lose control of your dirt bike and crash, okay? So do you A, hurry up and continue the ride, or B, assess your injuries and take necessary first aid measures?
Right. I mean, it's kind of obvious that
they start out easy.
Course.
They will get harder.
Right.
So yes,
of course,
B.
like look at injuries, look at,
of course.
What just happened.
Good. Yeah, that is correct. You assess your injuries and you find you have some serious scrapes and bruises, but you're fine. So you're okay. You take the necessary first aid measures and now you're ready to go. So do you A, stay with your dirt bike and try to restart it, or B, leave your dirt bike and try to find help?
Well, I mean, I think everybody would try to start the bike, obviously, I get farther with the bike and try to go for help with the bike. So I'm going to go with that one.
Yes, you are correct.
Seems like I'm gonna live so far, huh?
You're living so far, buddy. You're gonna stay with the dirt bike. It's kind of like anything. If you're in the middle of a blizzard and you got your car, or go walk in the blizzard, it's like, no, I'm gonna stay with the car. The car is easier to be found than you in the middle of nowhere. So yes, you choose to stay with your dirt bike and try and restart it. So you stay with the dirt bike, you try to restart. However, you find that the bike won't start. So despite your best efforts, do you A, walk to high ground and try to get cell service and call for help, or B, just continue trying to start the bike?
Well, the bike is dead, then I'm going to go to high ground so I can see what's happening. If there is how's the bear population and stuff like that, and try to get cell phone service, of course.
Now you're thinking ahead here. I like the way you're thinking. All right. Yes, there could be bears, or, who the hell knows. You walk to higher ground to get cell service and call for help. As you climb the hill, though, you hear some moaning and gurgling. Okay? Moaning and gurgling. Do you A, investigate the moaning and gurgling to see what the hell is causing it? Or B, just ignore it and keep on moving on your way?
Question: did I bring my rocket launcher when I packed? No, of course I'm gonna of course investigate it, but with caution. You don't wanna disrupt mama bears raising her cubs, right? But cautiously investigate.
Yes. All right. Yes. So you investigate the moaning and the gurgling to see what's going on. As you get closer, you realize that the groans are actually coming from a group of zombies. All right.
Oh. Okay.
Zombies tend to be pretty popular. Are you watching what is it called? Left Behind. No, The Rest of Us. I don't know. A combination of those words. It's a great zombie movie. Or zombie series on, I believe, HBO. So do you A, fight off the zombies, or B, look for a weapon?
Well, look for a weapon before I would start fighting them.
You're not going hand to hand.
No, not with zombies, right? A long stick,
Yeah.
At least
zombies.
A long stick, right?
Usually they bite and spread and turn you into a zombie. So you're going to look for a weapon instead of fighting with your hands.
So definitely weapon, right?
Got it. B, correct. So you look for a weapon to defend yourself. You find a big, fat, gnarly branch stick, right? Something that can, you can beat the hell out of something with. And you use this big branch to bludgeon a couple of zombies to death. It really, literally, you have to bash their brains in order to kill these guys, okay? So do you A, rush back to your dirt bike and try and restart it again, or B, just go ahead and keep searching for more zombies since you're on a killing spree?
Well, I think this neither, obviously the dirt bike was dead. I would keep continuing for the high ground to try to get a helicopter or some kind of a help. But but in the same time, who doesn't like a little bit of a zombie bludgeoning, right? From these two, if I have to pick, I'm gonna bludgeon zombies. But this is a neither.
Well, for this one, you're trying to actually get back to this dirt bike so that you can maybe you'll have better luck this time and try to restart the damn thing so you can get some space between you and the zombies.
Right.
And lucky for you,
into the definition of insanity, right? We're trying the same thing. And the bike
doing the same thing over and over again is called crazy. But yes, you are crazy, and you're heading back, and you barely get it started this time. All right.
Oh wow. Okay.
But it stalls again. Okay, you got it started, then it stalls, and two zombies are walking single file, like right at you. Okay, and they're closing in. So, do you keep trying to start the bike, or are you trying to find a new weapon because you threw the stick down to try and start the damn thing? So, I'm guessing your answer is
definitely weapon.
Yes, you're looking around.
Every time the weapon question comes, it will be the weapon.
Always the weapon. So, yes, you're going to go ahead and you're getting your weapon. You happen to find a kettlebell-sized rock, and you're hurling it at these single-file zombies, all right? And lucky for you, in one throw, you can destroy both of them in the head because you're Zoltan, right? So you throw, and you're hitting one in the head. It passes through because these are soft-headed zombies. Okay. And it hits the second one in the head, too. So now you take out basically 2 zombies with 1 stone. Good job. Do you A, ride to a nearby police station because you got your bike up and running, or B, just get the hell away from everything and drive far, far away?
Well, obviously the police station to alert the zombie infestation, and they might have more weapons I can borrow. So.
But what if the police are the zombies there too?
Well, I would find out pretty quickly, but I would go to the police station. I guess, well, let's pick up a rock before I walk to the
There you go. Yeah, I mean, you go anywhere you go where there's humans, there's a potential facing more zombies. So for this scenario, we're just going to get you far and far away. Okay. Hopefully you find a larger vehicle, right? So now you can start running these things over. So you get far, far away, and ultimately, Zoltan, you survived this podcast. So good job. Not only did you survive your motorcycle ride in the middle of nowhere, but you survived the zombie attack that happened to be out there. So good job. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you kind of have them, a couple of them, because I was picking the police station, but see, the police station would have more weapons though, so it's kind of like,
it's give and take. It's give and take. You bring up some good points. So number one, what we like to do is extract from these stories the takeaways, right? So, improvised weapons are everywhere. You should always be looking for them. These days, what are the zombies? It's active shooters. They're roaming around. They're killing everything in sight. And it takes brave people to actually stand up and fight. And sometimes, you've got to use what you have around you to do it. I go around teaching corporations this type of stuff. And, I tell people all the time that just because that person has a weapon or a gun does not mean they're not vulnerable to attack.
Right.
Just like a zombie, an active shooter has adrenaline pumping. They have tunnel vision, so they're looking through a straw. And the first time they fire that weapon, they're deaf.
Yeah.
And so you're dealing with a deaf, almost blind person. So don't think for a second that grabbing whatever you can around you can't take out an active shooter or a bad guy, right? So,
and it's a projectile weapon. So it's a projectile weapon. I have to be flagged to be in danger.
That's right.
So, there's that.
There is that. And out of curiosity, have you ever had to face any crazy situations, crazy fan, anything like that in your rock star world?
I mean, with weapons?
Or anything. Any crazy moment where you're like, holy crap, this is kind of dangerous because they're coming for you for who you are.
Oh no.
Never had any issues, huh?
No. I mean, when it comes to danger and putting my life in danger and all that stuff, through my life, like a million times, crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff, like, from fans that never really happened. No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of unusual, right? I mean, a lot of entertainers tend to have usually but maybe it's because of who you are. I mean, everyone knows you are obviously a gifted martial artist, and they probably think twice.
Situational awareness, the number one, the rule of martial arts is don't be where you shouldn't be. It's the first rule of combat, kind of. So, I'm pretty aware of my surrounding at all times. I don't sit in a restaurant with my back to the door. I always pick the spot in the restaurant where I can see the whole restaurant from. I don't walk around on the street looking at my cell phone. So I mean, there are some things that I naturally, do because that's how I operate, So I think that's how things go sideways. You were not paying attention. It's like it's really bizarre because, you know, it's like we are the only creatures on this planet that sort of lost our, you know, our ability or even our will to sort of be aware at all times. Every other creature is keenly aware of their mortality. You know, any animal is aware that their life can end at any given moment, so they pay attention. It's only humans that subscribe to this sort of fictitious safety, this appeared or sort of assumed safety, I guess. And we start to pay attention less and less and less and less, and that's how things happen.
That's where complacency gets you killed.
Right.
Look, Zoltan, I appreciate you taking the time. You are a wealth of information, knowledge, and experience. It is always a pleasure hanging out with you. Where can listeners find your tour schedule, everything about you, and keep up with you?
So obviously the band's social media and everybody's social media, so it's fivefingerdeathpunch.com, and all our socials are fivefingerdeathpunch or abbreviated 5FDP. So it's, you know, it's easy to find at this point. We're gonna be busy 23, 24, going to be a lot of time on the road. We are doing a massive tour with Metallica. These are all stadiums all around the world. And in between, we're playing other festivals and shows, and we're still adding to the schedule. So the schedule is being updated as we speak. So just you know, look at our schedule on the website. I guess that's the best way, and it's connected already to the Ticketmaster and all those, you know, ticket venues, so you can get your tickets as well. So easy to find us.
Well, that's it. Five Finger Death Punch and Metallica. Holy shit. Right. That is just badass. Imagine. Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, you know,
yeah, dude.
It's I'm telling you, sometimes it's surreal that all the bands and all the posters on my wall when I was a kid, you know, and the band names that I was scribbling into my books and the logos I was drawing. And now those guys are my peers, and a lot of them are my friends, good friends that I
awesome.
I was watching growing up and influenced by, and you know, we hanging out, sipping tea together, you know, because everybody's sober these days. So yeah, but you know, and having conversations and texting each other, and they're my peers. It's pretty surreal. This is the thing that people told me, like, this is not possible, you know.
Right.
This is not possible. It's not gonna happen, and it happened, and it happened way beyond that I even thought was possible.
That is incredible, and you are making dreams come true, and that's what everybody should take away from this. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do for vets. Thank you for everything you do. There's so much more we could talk about, but if you didn't know, Zoltan's a big fan of the military. He's done a lot of great things for vets. But look for him out there. Instagram, that's where I kind of keep track of them. Of course, the Five Finger Death Punch websites and Instagram and other socials. And like I always say, keep it simple, because crisis will complicate the rest, and be safe out there.